The $500 billion clothing lie. Why Europe banned your wardrobe? The scanner chirped. A TSA agent frowned at a toddler's t-shirt. The screen lit with a chemical fingerprint nobody expects from cotton. The line stalled. A mother's face drained. We're testing for dye residues. A shirt, not a suitcase. Here's the part most people miss. Clothing isn't just fabric. It's chemistry against skin all day. Formaldehyde to keep it fresh. PFAS so juice rolls off. Azo dyes that make black truly black. In Europe, much of this triggered bans and limits. In America, the same tags slid onto hangers, thanks to a loophole you've never heard of and rules built on trust. Let's rewind. Skin-deep betrayal. Clothes that act like products. Start with how long your skin wears your choices. 8, 10, 14 hours against the same waistband, collar, leggings. Heat, sweat, and friction turn fabric into a delivery system. That soft, wrinkle-free, stain-resistant promise, those aren't adjectives, they're finishes. Wrinkle-free cotton wasn't born calm. It's treated with resins that can leave formaldehyde residues. Under heat and steam, trace amounts can off-gas or migrate. The EU set strict limits for formaldehyde in textiles, especially for products that touch skin for long periods. In the US, there's no federal limit for apparel, only voluntary guidance. Families learn the rule the hard way. A baby's onesie looks crisp. A red rash blooms along the neckline after nap time. Switch to an untreated cotton, wash twice, and it fades. The tag never mentioned chemistry. The skin did. Color tells on itself too. The deep blacks, navies, and reds in fast fashion lean on high-performance dye systems. Some azo dyes can break down into 22 specific aromatic amines. The EU bans across textiles because of cancer concerns. The US doesn't enforce a broad national ban across apparel. On polyester, dispersed dyes ride the fibers, then meet sweat and friction in motion. Athletes know the story. New track uniforms, same brand, same color, sudden dermatitis on shoulders and waistbands. A European batch shipped to an EU market tests clean under REACH rules. The US run complies without telling you with what. Stain-resistant is where the forever part creeps in. PFAS, the same chemical family tied to water and grease-repellent coatings, shows up in school uniforms, outerwear, and workwear. A 2022 peer-reviewed study found PFAS in many school uniforms labeled stain-resistant, and residues transfer to dust with normal wear. Europe is moving toward a universal PFAS restriction, with countries proposing bans for textile. The US response is a patchwork. Strong state laws in California and Maine, voluntary phase-outs elsewhere, and slower federal debate. Meanwhile, every wash and wear moves small amounts into your home air and dust. Even hardware talks. Nickel releases from buttons and snaps can trigger allergies, so common that the EU set a nickel release standard for items in prolonged skin contact. In the US, that clarity doesn't exist across apparel. A cheap jean button becomes a blistering patch on an abdomen. A safer swap exists, but it's invisible from the front of the package. Leather carries its own shadow. Chrome tanning, done fast and dirty, can leave behind chromium VI, a potent sensitizer. The EU caps residual CR VI in leather goods. The US lacks a specific federal limit for finished apparel. Belts, watch bands, and linings don't need a paragraph to say this might bite your skin. They just need time, heat, and sweat. Here's the EU-US, split in one move. REACH makes companies prove safety and meet substance restrictions before products flood shelves. No data, no market. The US system historically assumed safe as used until harm is proven, and often by people wearing the proof. That's how you get the same hoodie with 2 recipes, an EU-compliant version that names allergens online, and a US counterpart whose label says complies and proprietary fragrant. Now add the speed of ultra-fast fashion. Direct-to-consumer parcels fly under the de minimis customs threshold, under $800 in the US. Millions of small packages avoid the scrutiny that would catch illegal dyes, phthalates in prints, and FAS-heavy coatings. Europe's market surveillance and rapid alerts yank problem items faster. American headlines often arrive after the haul has already landed in closets and classrooms. Teens become beta tester. The fixes aren't flashy. They're boring and they work. Wash new clothes before wear, especially dark synthetics and wrinkle-free cotton. Favor untreated basics. Skip the stain-resistant claim for school clothes. Choose vegetable tanned leather or certified nickel-safe hardware. Look for third-party textile standards, OEKO-TEX, GOTS, Bluesign, because someone outside the brand checked the recipe. If a brand publishes testing disclosures or EU allergen lists globally, reward that with receipt. Micro story that sticks. A daycare director tracked rashes on nap days. The pattern followed the laundry, fresh sheets washed with a scented booster plus new stain-resistant smocks. She swapped to an unscented, certified detergent, cut the booster and replaced smocks with plain cotton washed twice before first wear. The rash log thinned in a week. Parents thought she added something. She removed it. Another one, a runner's knee creases blistered every time she wore a new pair of matte black leggings. She messaged customer service, got a cheerful paragraph that said nothing, then checked the EU site for the same model. A list of dye allergens disclosed above thresholds. She switched brands to a certified line, washed twice, and the burns vanished. The root didn't change. The chemistry did. It's easy to think if it was dangerous, it wouldn't be sold. But markets don't move on feelings. They move on rules. Where the EU draws bright lines, specific azoamine bans, nickel release thresholds, CRVI limits, PFAS proposals, the US leans on voluntary lanes and state-by-state puzzles. Same hanger, different burden of proof. Your skin's burden doesn't change. So is every finish a villain? No, but every promise printed on a hang tag needs a question. What makes it soft? What keeps it flat? What repels that spill? If the answer is silence, assume the finish rides home with you. Then do the simple things that cut contact. Wash new, favor untreated, skip long-lasting freshness, and let independent standards do the talking. Because clothing isn't just fashion. It's contact chemistry that lives where you do on your skin. Forever Wardrobe PFAS in waterproof, stain-resistant, and wrinkle-free. The first clue wasn't on a label. It was in a living room that smelled faintly like a new tent. A firefighter's jacket hung by the door. Across the room, a couch repelled every spill like it had a force field. Same trick, 2 rooms, 1 chemical family, PFAS. The promise reads clean. Water doesn't soak, pizza grease glides, coffee beads and bounces. The price is persistence. These compounds don't break down on a schedule you recognize. They move from fabric to from dust to hands, and in too many cases, from hands into blood. You meet them where the claims sound helpful. Durable water repellent on outdoor shells, stain-resistant on school uniforms and table linens, wrinkle-free on work shirts that never need an iron. That performance often rides on fluorinated chemistry, side-chain fluoropolymers and finishes that give fibers their slick skin. The effect is dramatic, so is the afterlife. Tests in North America found PFAS markers in a majority of school uniforms labeled stain-resistant. Another set of jackets clocked levels so high European labs treated them like industrial gear, not clothing. That's the hard part to swallow. Nobody bought a hazmat suit, they bought a back-to-school package. Meanwhile, the compounds don't stay put. Friction and wear shed microbits. Washing pushes residues toward wastewater. Dryers lift volatile fragments into indoor air. The dose on a sleeve might be small. The loop is daily and quiet. Dress, move, shed, breathe, touch, eat. The trail ends in house dust and too often in people. Here, where policy writes different stories. The EU is moving to restrict PFAS broadly, with national bans already proposed that include textiles and narrow exemptions for true safety gear. Their chemical strategy treats non-essential use as a reason to phase out. The United States moves in pieces, may set a timeline to ban most PFAS in products. California and New York have gone after PFAS in textiles and food packaging. Brands announce phase out. At the federal level, debate crawls while coats ship. If you're a parent staring at stain-resistant uniforms in August, you don't live inside a policy paper. You live inside the season. Micro-story lands it. A 3rd-grade teacher started logging headaches that lined up with her new classroom rug and a set of stain-resistant beanbags. By Halloween, half her students wore the same Easy Care polos. She didn't know what those finishes were called. She knew the room felt coated. The custodian swapped the beanbags for plain canvas. Parents shifted to untreated shirts washed twice before wear. The baseline lifted. The rug stayed. The headaches didn't. Now the wrinkle-free trap. A portion of non-iron cotton uses crosslinkers with formaldehyde. Others add PFAS for soil release. On synthetics, oil and water repellency often means fluorinated side chains. One tag says crisp, another says easy care. Neither says which chemistry made it effortless. Under heat and time, those finishes age. Long-lasting freshness can mean a slow release you never asked for. Outdoor gear has an out. Brands have spent the last few years pivoting to fluorine-free DWR, new chemistries that bead rain without fluorinated tails. They behave differently. You'll need to reproof more often. You'll notice less dry like glass and more dry enough. That's a trade most hikers can live with. The reality, you didn't need industrial-grade repellency to wait in a car line. You needed a hood. What do you do if your closet already glows? Fixes are boring and powerful. For daily wear, skip stain-resistant unless the job truly demands it. Choose untreated cotton or wool, especially for kids. For outerwear, look for PFAS-free or fluorine-free DWR from credible brands and expect to retreat with non-fluorinated sprays when performance fades. Wash less and air more to reduce shedding and indoor load. Run a vent or crack a window during dryer cycle. Vacuum with a HEPA filter when possible. Dust carries the history of your finishes. Uniforms are leverage. One district spec can clean up 1,000 rooms. Write no intentionally added PFAS in textiles into bid documents for school polos, staff fleeces, and furniture. Vendors already stock compliant lines. They move when the order does. If you need a script, it's short. Stain-resistant by default is unnecessary. If a trade requires repellency, mechanics, forestry, emergency services, buy what the job needs and keep it out of bedrooms and playroom. A family story ends the debate without a fight. 2 kids wore stain-resistant khaki every weekday. The dryer vent perfumed the yard with a sweet chemical note. Their parents swapped in plain cotton pants, washed twice before first wear, and anoraks with fluorine-free DWR. They set a rule: coats off at the door, school clothes change when they get home. The laundry room went quiet. So did the throat tickle nobody had connected to pants. Here's the test you can run in a store aisle. If a hang tag brags about weeks of protection, ask yourself, from what, for how long, and with what chemistry? If the answer isn't written plainly, PFAS-free, fluorine-free, or certified by a credible program, assume the finish rides home with you. Then choose the item that looks boring on paper and behaves better in a room you breathe. Because rain should bead on a window, not in your lungs. Grease should stay on a napkin, not in your blood. And the only thing your kid's shirt should pass along is a grass stain you can wash, not a forever one you can't. The color trap: azo dyes, dispersed dyes, and allergic skin. Color feels harmless because it looks like taste. Pick what you love, wear what you feel. But the chemistry that makes black truly black and red hold through a season can turn skin into the warning label the tag didn't print. To get those saturated shades on modern fibers, manufacturers lean on 2 big families: azo dyes and dispersed dyes. One transforms into band building blocks Europe spelled out years ago. The other sits on polyester like confetti until heat, sweat, and friction push it into skin. Start with the classic, azo dyes. They're workhorses because they're cheap, versatile, and deliver deep tone. The catch isn't the dye in perfect conditions. It's what some azo dyes can split into. Aromatic amines Europe restricts because of cancer concerns. Regulators name 22 and set bright lines across textiles that touch skin. Brands selling in the EU reformulated, tested, and listed. The US never drew a single nationwide line across apparel. A shirt that passes on one side of the Atlantic can arrive on the other carrying a dye recipe nobody had to disclose in full. Then there's polyester, the default fabric of fast fashion. It doesn't soak up water-based dyes well, so color gets delivered with dispersed dyes, tiny, almost water-insoluble particles that lodge in the fiber. That's fine for fabric. It's a mess for skin. Under heat and motion, dispersed dye molecules can leach, especially when sweat lowers the barrier. Dermatologists see the same pattern: underarms, waistbands, backs of knees where pressure and moisture stack. The reaction isn't random. It's a sensitization story you can trace by color and cut. Here's how it lands in real life. A high school track team gets new uniforms. 2 meets in, shoulders, ribs, and waistlines spark with itchy, raised patches that look like heat rash until the pattern says otherwise. Parents switch detergents, nothing changes. One trainer remembers an old lecture and orders patch tests for dispersed dye mixes. The kids who flared light up the panel. Samples sent to a lab show dispersed blue and dispersed orange. No national U.S. clothing rule prohibits these specific allergens. The same brand ships an EU run with different dye recipes. The kids keep running in long sleeve base layers that build a barrier. Black is its own trap. The richer the black on synthetics, the more likely dispersed dyes are doing the work. Those matte black leggings that promise squat-proof opacity hug the very places you sweat and flex. People blame detergent or elastic. Then they try a lighter color or a cotton blend and the problem evaporates. The fiber and dye, not the workout, were the trigger. Kids get dragged into this quietly. Fast fashion tees printed in deep navy and red look harmless. On a hot field day, collars bloom red not from sun but from dye. Parents chase mysteries, new soap, new sunscreen, until a pediatrician asks the dull question, what changed? When did the rash start? What color was the shirt? Now draw the policy split plainly. Under REACH, Europe banned specific amines from azo-dye breakdown and required hazard communication for allergens above thresholds, giving labs, brands, and consumers a map. In the US, there's no federal apparel-wide ban on those aromatic amines and no requirement to list dye allergens in clothing. You get feel-good claims, tested, compliant, without the list that would help you avoid a trigger. Meanwhile, state recalls and scattered enforcement chase individual cases after they've been worn. So what actually helps? Start boring. Wash deep, dark synthetics twice before first wear. Heat and water can pull unbound dye out before your skin has to. Favor cotton or tencel for high-friction zones, waistbands, inner thighs, underarms, where synthetics and dispersed dyes cause most trouble. If you love performance leggings, rotate colors. Lighter shades often carry less dye load. Look for dope-dyed or solution-dyed polyester in gear. Color added in the fiber-making step means less loose dye to rub off later. And yes, certifications help. OEKO-TEX standard 100 screens finished articles against restricted dye-related substances. Bluesign audits upstream so recipes shift before fabric hits a dye bath. Labels won't spell out dispersed blue 124 next to size medium, so use proxies. Matte, deep black synthetics in contact sport cuts are higher risk. Garments that bleed in the first wash are telling on themselves. If sink water turns dark, run another cycle before you wear. If a shirt smells like solvent when you open the bag, air it out and wash twice. Off-gassing isn't color, but the factory trail suggests the rest of the process cut corners. A micro-story seals it. A warehouse picker kept a rash around her waist all summer. She tried creams, swapped soaps, and even taped over the elastic. Nothing worked until a supervisor handed out company teas in a cotton blend and told the crew to wear cotton tanks under the polyester vests. 2 shifts later, the rash faded. Same job, same sweat, one fabric buffer. One more, a parent with an eczema-prone kid ditched the bargain 3-pack of deep navy polos and bought undyed cotton basics she dyed at home with a plant-based kit, then washed twice. The school complained once. The nurse's log stopped. The trade wasn't fashion for health. It was information for guesswork. Color isn't the villain, mystery is. Ask for disclosed allergen lists when you can. Reward brands that publish EU-style disclosures globally. And when a shade bites twice, believe it. The shirt won't take it personally. Your skin already did. Leather, chrome, and heavy metals. The Tannery shadow. The belt didn't look dangerous. Neither did the watchband or the wallet. They smelled like the same new leather note you've known since childhood. But the way most leather becomes leather isn't a craft table, it's chemistry under pressure. And when that shortcut goes wrong, it leaves a fingerprint that shows up on skin as a burn you can't quite place. Start with the fastest path to finished. Chrome tanning took over because it works in hours, not weeks. Hides go from raw to wearable in blue-green baths built on chromium salts. Done right, chromium stays in a safer trivalent state bound in the matrix. Done sloppy, too much heat, bad storage, poor controls, and some of it oxidizes to chromium VI, the sensitizer nobody asked for. It doesn't announce itself at first. It shows up as an angry patch where skin and leather live together. Under a watch, around a belt line, across a shoe tongue. Europe drew a line years ago. The EU set a residual limit for chromium VI in leather goods, 3 mg/kg, because allergy clinics kept seeing the same patch tests light up. Brands had to manage process conditions and test finished articles. In the US, there's no specific federal cap for CR/VI in finished leather apparel. A belt that flunks in Berlin can clear shelves in Boise. The body doesn't care which airport it flew through. Now zoom in on hardware. Nickel is everywhere because it's cheap, bright, and tough. It's also one of the most common contact allergens on Earth. The EU capped nickel release for items in prolonged skin contact, watchbacks, snaps, rivets, so the shine doesn't come with a rash. In the US, you won't find a parallel apparel-wide limit. A jean button that looks identical under store lights behaves very differently after a summer. Here's how people meet it. A warehouse manager buys a stack of bargain belts for a uniform upgrade. 2 weeks in, 3 workers develop coin-sized blisters exactly where the buckle sits. They blame heat. The nurse runs a quick patch test panel. Chromium shows. The belts land in a box. A replacement order goes out, vegetable tan leather, nickel-safe buckles, and the problem stops. Same job, same sweat, different recipe. Not all leather is equal. Vegetable tanned hides take time and plant tannins. The color ages, the stiffness softens, and you can smell tannery rather than solvent. It's slower and pricier, which is why fast markets skip it. There's also chrome-free and metal-free tanning using aldehydes and syntons. Those avoid chromium entirely but come with their own control needs. Residuals and biocides must be managed so a clean claim doesn't become a new rash. The shadows reach into linings and adhesives too. That buttery jacket sleeve that stains a shirt has more than dye to blame. Lining fabric can carry dispersed dyes and formaldehyde finishes that add friction to the story. The glue that holds a cheap insole can outgas more than a new car smell. When a product bites, it rarely uses one tooth. Policy sets the tone. Under REACH, brands learn to pull suspect chemistry upstream, test finished goods, and publish restricted substance lists. Under a lighter U.S. federal umbrella, disclosure becomes a promise, not a proof. Some American retailers have stepped in with house standards, nickel-safe, chromium VI not detected, supplier testing required, because lawsuits and returns cost more than better leather. But unless you see a standard you trust, you're guessing by price and polish. So what actually helps in real closets? For belts, watch bands, and shoes that live on skin, look for vegetable tanned or chrome-free claims backed by a credible certification. If a brand says nickel-safe and offers test data or references EU nickel release rules, take the win. For watches, titanium, ceramic, or coated stainless backs lower the odds. Leather-backed straps with fabric under layers add a buffer. If something new stings, stop martyring yourself, bag it, document the rash with dates and photos, and ask the brand for testing disclosures. Reputable companies will have them. A family moment drives it home. A teenager broke out in quarter-moon rashes under a new smartwatch. The pediatrician asked about laundry. Mom changed detergent. Nothing changed. A week later, someone suggested swapping the band. A fabric-lined strap went on, the rings faded. The brand's site eventually posted an update. Complies with EU nickel release. The first run didn't. Footwear is the quiet backlog. Cheap boots tanned hot and finished fast shed color and chemistry under socks. If your ankles itch every time it rains, it's not a personality trait. Choose leather from makers who state tanning methods, use socks as a barrier during break-in, and air shoes out heat and moisture drive reactions. Insoles labeled chromium VI not detected and formaldehyde-free adhesives aren't luxury talk. They're Monday feet. And then there's second-hand. Vintage leather that's been worn and aired for years often behaves better than something glossy from a drop-shipped cart. The patina you love is time doing what chemistry didn't, finishing the process. None of this asks you to give up leather. It asks you to stop treating new as a virtue and old school as a vibe. Leather can be durable, repairable, and low drama if the path from hide to hinge respected skin. When in doubt, let boring claims lead. Vegetable tanned, nickel-safe, chromium VI not detected, certified to a standard you can flame, and formaldehyde. The rest is just shine. The safety that sticks to skin. The tag said compliant. The pajamas smelled fresh. A parent tugged the collar and felt that tacky stiffness that passes for quality on a busy aisle. By midnight, the toddler's neck was flushed and hot. The label language had done its job. The fabric did another. This is where an old fear still edits new clothes. In the 1970s, sleepwear rules were written to cut burn risk. Manufacturers had two paths: design for snug fit that starves a flame, or treat fabric so it resists one. The clean option is boring and reliable, tight cuts in natural fibers that pass a simple candle test. The other route moves chemistry onto bodies. Tris-like flame retardants rode children's pajamas until doctors and toxicologists forced them out. Then the industry pivoted. Treatments slid into foams, interlinings, and trims. The label still read compliant. The contact stayed. Walk through a home and you'll meet it without noticing. Quilted pajamas that hold their shape like cardboard. Costume capes that claim flame resistant. Quilted sleep sacks that feel slightly waxy. In furniture, the same reflex hid in cushions for years. Flame retardant-treated foams built to meet open flame standards that didn't match how fires actually start. Researchers kept finding the legacy chemicals downstream, in house dust, in pets, in people. The fixes came piecemeal. Some states rewrote flammability rules to focus on smolder resistance without demanding chemical proofing. Brands moved with the law, but the residue of that era still lives in closets and hand-me-downs. Formaldehyde threads through this story quietly. It's not a flame retardant, but it's part of the same illusion: safety as a feeling delivered by finish. Cross-linking resins harden cotton so it resists wrinkling. speeds production, stacks on hangers clean. Under EU rules, there are caps for free formaldehyde in textiles that touch skin. In the US, there's no federal textile limit. Shirts that brag non-iron can off gas under heat and time and irritate thin skin around collars, inside elbows, behind knees. The fabric sits there for 12 hours. The contact tells. Here's where it gets stranger. To dodge overt flame chemicals in kids' sleepwear, manufacturers lean hard on the snug fit exemption. That's good design when it's honest. It's a loophole when a garment that behaves like a costume gets cut close, stamped not intended for sleepwear, and sold next to pajamas. Parents buy safety-sounding claims. Kids wear them to bed. The tag gets the brand off the hook. The contact doesn't. Microstory makes it human. A pediatric nurse started logging an odd pattern. Winter rashes on chins and chests, mostly toddlers, mostly after holidays. She asked one parent to bring in the sleep sack. It felt like a raincoat. She suggested 2 changes: swap to a snug-fit cotton pajama labeled to that effect and wash it twice before first wear with an unscented detergent. 2 weeks later, the mom emailed a single sentence: "The rash is gone." The sleep sack moved to a donation pile. It shouldn't have. Meanwhile, in furniture and car seats, standards drift. California's TB 117/2013 shifted the landscape by focusing on smolder resistance for foam and fabric without requiring open flame performance that drove heavy flame retardant use. Many brands went chemical-free in cores to meet it. Labels began to tell a different story, but imported foam and aftermarket pads still carry legacy chemistry. Kids lie face down on treated surfaces. Pets sleep there. House dust keeps the record. What actually helps? For kids, look for the words snug fit and not flame resistant on sleepwear. That sounds wrong and it's right. Snug fitting cotton and wool pass without chemical treatment because they deny a flame the air it needs. Avoid loose, fuzzy, or coated fabrics for sleep unless you can verify they're free of flame retardant treatments. Wash all new sleep items twice before use to strip finishes. Skip fragrances. They add irritation without solving a risk. For costumes and lounge sets, treat not intended for sleepwear as a real boundary, not fine print. If a child falls asleep in a cape or princess dress, change them. If they nap on treated pillows or foam wedges, rethink those surfaces. For mattresses and sofas, look for TB 117/2013 compliance with statements, contains no added flame retardants, and ask the retailer for a certification letter. It's not overkill, it's a filter. Formaldehyde has a boring fix. Choose untreated basics over wrinkle-free. If you need easy care, favor knits or blends that drape without resins. If a shirt smells sharp out of the bag, air it out and wash twice. In nurseries, don't iron a brand new non-iron sheet. Heat drives emissions. Wash first, then use. Policy still splits screens. The EU caps formaldehyde and has moved away from open flame tests that invite chemical shortcuts. The US relies on design exemptions, voluntary claims, and updated smolder standards in some categories. Car seats and juvenile products live under their own rules and marketing pressure. Brands tell you they go beyond compliance. Ask how. Ask for what? One last house scene. A daycare switched nap mats from vinyl-coated foam to tightly woven cotton covers over plain mats. They laundered covers weekly in an unscented wash. They posted a small sign, "Snug fit pajamas only." Parents grumbled once. The coughs got quieter. The hallway stopped smelling like a new tent. Safety didn't leave the room. The theater did. Ultra-fast fashion loophole. De minimis and customs evasion. The packages don't arrive on pallets anymore. They arrive like rain, soft parcels, tens of thousands a day, each one small enough to slip under the guardrail. A teenager scrolls a feed, taps twice, and a week later a shirt lands on a porch with a smiley sticker. No warehouse, no retailer, no inspection line asking what's inside the dye, the print, the buckle. The system calls it de minimis. The industry calls it business. Your skin gets the bill. Here's the rule in plain English. If an incoming package is valued under a set threshold, under $800 in the US, it can enter through an express lane with minimal paperwork and often no routine safety screening. Decades ago, that kept customs desks from drowning in postcards and souvenirs. Then ultra-fast fashion found the lane and paved it with marketing. When a platform sells directly from factory to you, one parcel at a time, the shipment looks like a gift, not inventory. It is inventory, just sliced thin enough that nobody tests whether a toddler's knit hat hides band phthalates in a plastisol print or an adult hoodie bleeds Oz. A European lab would flag in an hour. Watch how the math behaves. A brand ships $100,006 tops instead of a $600,000 container. Each top rides de minimis. Each top avoids the sampling that bulk shipments often face. Each top becomes someone's Tuesday outfit, even if the dye on its collar would have tripped a European RAPEX recall before lunch. The speed is the selling point. The speed is also the smoke screen. A micro story lands it. A parent ordered matching graphic tees for a middle school spirit day from a pop-up brand with a name that sounded like a password. The shirts arrived in crinkly bags with no return address, just a QR code. The kids wore them once. By evening, one had a red arc around his neck that matched the print's edge. The doctor looked, asked nothing about slogans, and everything about ink. The parcel had floated past the kind of testing a big box shipment might have seen. The rash didn't. Platforms point to trust badges, influencer hauls, and tens of millions of satisfied customers. They aren't entirely wrong. Plenty of small parcels carry nothing more sinister than nylon and missed expectations. But when NGOs and labs buy a cross-section and run them through accredited testing, the pattern repeats. Illegal levels of phthalates in faux leather trims, PFAS in stain-proof school pieces, azo-amine positives in deep dye. Europe's market surveillance and alert systems yank offenders from virtual shelves and name them. In the US, headlines arrive after the cart ships. The loophole multiplies other quiet problems. Labeling requirements blur when the seller of record sits outside your jurisdiction. Ingredient disclosure fades into proprietary. A recall becomes a post on an app most buyers won't see. Meanwhile, teens become beta testers, wearing what regulators haven't sampled, learning the hard way which print burns under a backpack strap. Why does this lane exist? Because customs infrastructure wasn't built for social commerce. Because carriers get paid to move volume, not to profile chemistry. Because raising the threshold once made political sense for travelers and small businesses. Ultra-fast fashion simply read the spec and built a machine around it. Micro drops, tiny SKUs, constant churn, price points that live under the ceiling. The parcels look like confetti. They act like a policy. Fixes aren't theoretical. Governments can lower thresholds, require better data from platforms, and make marketplaces jointly liable for illegal goods. The EU is already pushing platforms to share responsibility and expanding digital product passport ideas, so a fabric's chemistry isn't a mystery by design. Some US bills would tighten de minimis reporting or exclude repeat offenders. Carriers can flag high-risk categories, children's apparel, faux leather accessories, printed sleepwear, for random testing. None of that stops a tea from shipping. It stops the worst recipes from hiding inside one. What do you do while laws catch up? Aim your money where testing already exists. Buy from brands that publish restricted substance lists, disclose PFAS-free and azo-amine compliance, and post nickel and chromium testing for trims and leather. If you're going to shop a marketplace, filter for sellers that ship from domestic inventory. Bulk imports into warehouses face more scrutiny than atomized mail. For kids, skip bargain graphics from ghosts. Choose plain fabrics you can wash twice before wear. For schools and teams, write no intentionally added PFAS, azo-amine compliant, phthalate safe prints, nickel safe trims into spec sheets, then publish random lab results. Vendors will meet the paper that pays them. A last micro story. A coach ordered 60 budget warm-ups from a seller he couldn't call. Half the jackets bled dye on white jerseys. The school ate the cost, then rewrote the bid with EU-style chemical clauses, asked for certificates, and sent 2 random pieces to a lab. The next shipment didn't rub off. The kids still won games. The hallway stopped smelling like solvent. De minimis wasn't written for your closet. It became your closet. Until rules match the reality on your porch, keep your guard high where the price is too low, the return address is a mystery, and the chemistry is a shrug. The package may be small, the contact is. Laundry fallout, microfibers, dyes, and PFAS to water and dust. The closet didn't end at the door. It ended in the lint trap, the drain, and the air you breathe after the dryer clicks off. Laundry sounds like an exit. It's a pipeline. Every wash and tumble turns clothes into tiny travelers, microfibers, dye fragments, and finish residues that leave fabric and join your house. Start with the obvious you never see. Synthetics shed. Polyester, nylon, acrylic, every agitation scuffs fibers loose. You can't feel them, but the filter can. Pull the lint and you're holding a week of clothes turning into air. The pieces that don't make lint are smaller. They slip through the washer and head for the sewer, too fine for most filters at the plant. The journey doesn't stop there. What rides wastewater enters rivers? What rides dryer exhaust floats back into rooms? Measure dust on a bookshelf, and you'll find a clothing signature. Color rides along. Unfixed dye from deep synthetics bleeds in the first cycles, not just into the water, but into ultrafine bits that carry color chemistry into air. Open a washer during a dark load, and that metallic tang in the steam isn't poetry. It's the factory's leftovers leaving the cloth. If your sink water goes blue on the first rinse, imagine the pieces too small to tint it and where they'll land by dinner. Then the finishes. If PFAS helped a sleeve repel ketchup, tiny versions of that promise don't retire at rinse. They shave off in wash and wear, hitchhiking on fibers and fragments toward drain pipes and into lint. Test indoor dust and you'll find fluorine fingerprints when stain-resistant school clothes are staples. Examine a lint trap and fluorine shows up there too. The trap is a story, what your family wore and what left. A micro-story tells it without a lab. A couple noticed the dryer made their throats prickly when dark loads ran. They cleaned the vent and thought it was fixed. It was. One weekend they swapped to cold wash, cut detergent to the line, ran a second rinse on deep synthetics and hung those pieces to air. The next week the air felt different. The lint smelled like nothing. The change wasn't magic. It was less chemistry turned into mist. Wastewater plants do good work, but they weren't built to chase fibers the width of a hair split 100 times or to catch every dye fragment and finish. Microfibers slip through, carrying whatever rode in the closet. Downstream studies find them in sediment and fish. Upstream, the same house air that warms kids as they run past the laundry nook also feeds lungs. What helps is not glamorous, it's mechanical and dull. Wash cold. Heat accelerates shedding and dye loss. Choose gentle cycles. Less friction means fewer fibers cut loose. Don't overfill the drum. Overloading scrapes fabric against fabric until it pills in microscopic. Dose detergent to the mark. Too much increases suds and friction without cleaning more. Add a second rinse when you wash dark synthetics or treated uniforms. It pulls what the first rinse missed. Filters matter. External lint traps and microfiber filters capture what the standard screen doesn't. In washer, filters catch pieces before water leaves. Inline dryer filters add another net. If that sounds like overkill, look at the cartridge after a month. You'll stop arguing with physics. Laundry bags designed to capture shedding help too. They don't look heroic, they work. Airflow is a tool. Run a vented dryer with the duct clear and short. If you use a condenser or heat pump dryer, clean internal filters on schedule. Crack a window during and after drying. A small fan pointing out does more for indoor air than any candle masked as fresh. Vacuum with a HEPA filter where kids crawl and where laundry opens. Dust is not neutral, it remembers. Fabric choices lower the load before wash day. For pieces that live close to skin, sleepwear, tees, leggings favor cotton and wool. They shed, but natural fibers break down differently in the environment, and they don't carry the same synthetic dye and finish loads. For performance gear, look for knit density and solution-dyed claims, less unbound color to lose. If a garment bleeds in the sink, wash it alone until water runs clear. One more human moment. A parent noticed their baby's cheeks flushed after they folded warm laundry on a bed. They started moving baskets to the kitchen table, ran the fan, and waited 10 minutes before sorting. The flushing stopped. The pediatrician wasn't shocked. Warm fabric emits what it held. Time is a filter too. The industry can do its part. Less PFAS in finishes, better fixation of dyes, fabrics engineered to shed less, but homes won't wait for perfect. Every gentle cycle, every filter, every outdoor shake transforms the pipeline into a trickle. The closet will always end somewhere. Make sure it ends where it does the least harm. In a filter you can empty, not in a lung you can't clean. Reach versus, safe as used. 2 worlds, 1 closet. Stand in a hallway with 2 doors and 1 hoodie. Same color, same logo, same feel in your hands. Through one door, that hoodie lives under reach. Through the other, it lives under safe as used. The hanger looks identical. The rules behind it don't. Reach starts with a blunt premise. Prove it. If you want to sell chemicals in the EU, you register them, share data, name hazards, and clear restrictions. No data, no market isn't a slogan. It's the lock on the door. That's why European sites post allergen lists for dyes above thresholds and publish restricted substance lists you can read without a decoder ring. The burden sits with the supplier, not with a parent holding a rash diary. Across the hall, the US system grew up differently. For decades, a lot of chemistry moved under safe as used until the government could prove otherwise. The law changed on paper, but the reflex lingers. Oversight splits across agencies. Apparel slides between chairs. Brands fill the space with complies, proprietary, and dermatologist tested. Those words sound like help. They're not a map. Here's the split on a timeline. Under REACH, 22 specific aromatic amines from azo dye breakdown are banned. Nickel release gets a numeric cap for items in prolonged skin contact. Chromium VI in leather is limited by weight. PFAS. The EU is pushing a universal restriction, while member states file national bans that carve out narrow professional exemption. Under the US patchwork, you find strong state laws, voluntary brand standards, and federal silence loud enough to hear in a fitting room. The result is as simple as it is frustrating. The same brand prints 2 receipts for the same hoodie. A buyer in Berlin clicks details and sees allergens named if they cross thresholds. A buyer in Boise sees fragrance and compliance language that reads like a shrug. If the Boise hoodie causes a reaction, the troubleshooting starts in a clinic with patch tests and ends with a customer service email that cites policy. The Berlin hoodie never made the rash necessary in the first place. Micro story that keeps me up at night. A warehouse of school polos lands at a port. In Europe, samples get pulled, checked against REACH, and posted to public alert systems if they fail. In the US, the same shipment can pivot to direct-to-door parcels and slide under the de minimis threshold. Months later, a district nurse sees a spike in contact dermatitis. The fix isn't medicine, it's paperwork. Brands live in both worlds, and the best ones harmonize to the stricter side. They publish EU-style disclosures globally, certify PFAS-free textiles, and align nickel-safe trim across markets because running 2 recipes is messy. Others don't. The spreadsheet decides. If a retailer doesn't demand REACH-level specs in the US, a cheaper line ships with the same label copy as the cleaner one. So how do you shop when the hallway refuses to pick a standard? Use rules that outlive borders. 1. Favor brands that post restricted substance lists, finished article testing, and EU allergen disclosures on their US sites. 2. Let credible certifications do the heavy lifting. OEKO-TEX Standard 100 for finished goods, GOTS for organic cotton with audited chemistry, Shein for upstream process control. 3. Treat stain-resistant and non-iron as chemistry claims until proven otherwise. If a tag doesn't say PFAS-free or name a fluorine-free DWR, assume it is. 4. For leather and trims, look for chromium VI not detected, nickel safe, and actual test data, not vibes. Policy matters, and it isn't theoretical. One public buyer writing, no intentionally added PFAS, nickel release per EU limit, azo aman compliant, chromium VI not detected, into a school uniform contract moves supply faster than 100 comments. A retailer adding REACH-style specs to private label changes factories because logistics hates running 2 formulas. That's the quiet power of a closet multiplied by 1,000. Human moment that proves it. A US hospital system rewrote scrub specs to mirror EU chemical rules. PFAS-free, azo-amine-compliant dyes, nickel-safe snaps. Vendors groaned, then complied. 6 months later, the facility's team logged fewer laundry room odors, and the dermatology clinic saw fewer waistline rashes among staff. Nobody congratulated regulation. They noticed they weren't itchy at 4 p.m. If all this sounds like a lecture, it is. It's a way to stop guessing, because you don't need to memorize acronyms to avoid wearing policy failures. You need a handful of defaults: boring basics over miracle finishes, third-party seals over slogans, EU-style disclosure over proprietary, and purchase orders that ask for numbers instead of reassurances. 2 doors, 1 hoodie. Until the laws match, pick the hallway that behaves like REACH even when the hang tag doesn't. Your skin can't litigate, your receipt can. Greenwashing and natural lies. Cotton isn't clean by default. The tag said 100% cotton, so a parent relaxed. Natural sounded like safety, but cotton doesn't come off a plant ready for a hang tag. It goes through scours, bleaches, softeners, biocides, optical brighteners, and warehouse-proof freshness that hangs around long after the store. The fiber might be simple. The finish rarely is. Here's the quiet trick. Marketing leans on farm words while the recipe lives in a lab. Plant-based softeners and detergents can still be ethoxylated, dragging along trace contaminants the label never lists. Naturally derived sounds like a field, it behaves like a factory. Unscented may hide a masking fragrance to neutralize base odors, not disclose them. And hypoallergenic isn't a standard, it's a vibe. Cotton sheets tell the story fast. Optical brighteners make whites look bluer under light. They don't clean, they glow. For sensitive skin, that fluorescent film turns sleep into a sting, especially along cheeks and chins. Anti-mildew finishes stop mold in transit but keep working on you. Biocidal claims on towels and teas sell peace of mind. They also increase contact with preservatives designed to survive warm, wet shells. Color doesn't save you here either. Natural-looking beiges and creams can still carry softeners and crease-resistant agents. Wrinkle-free cotton often owes its calm to crosslinkers that put chemistry above steam. Wash and heat can shift residues into air. The room smells crisp because something left the cloth. That's not a candle, that's the finish talking. Or what separates theater from substance, certifications with teeth. GOTS isn't just organic cotton in a field, it's audited chemistry from fiber to finished article. No PFAS, no heavy metal dyes, restricted formaldehyde disclosure across steps. OEKO-TEX standard 100 screens finished items against a long list of restricted substances at set thresholds and tests batches, not just intentions. Bluesign focuses upstream so mills swap recipes before fabric sees a finish. If a product carries these marks with a valid number you can verify, someone outside the brand checked more than a font. A micro story lands it. A teenager with eczema woke up with angry lines along pillow seams every Monday. The family cycled creams and detergents. Nothing helped. They swapped to a GOTS certified set, washed twice without scent boosters, and moved the pillowcase into a separate laundry bag. The lines vanished in a week. The dermatologist wasn't surprised. The skin didn't care that the old case was cotton. It cared that the chemistry was gone. Another one, a runner loved natural teas that smelled fresh for days. He thought that meant clean. His neck itched every afternoon. He switched to plain cotton tanks certified by OEKO-TEX, cut the dryer sheets, and aired clothes after runs. The itch faded. Fresh had been a finish, not a state of mind. Green claims crowd the aisle now. Eco, clean, pure, plant-powered. Some are honest. Others use one good change to hide 3 bad habits. Brands drop one suspect preservative and replace it with an isothiazolinone cousin that patch tests light up. They swap fluorinated repellents in one line and keep them in another, then let the campaign imply a full shift. They post a restricted substance list and never publish test results. If you can't click a certificate number, you're buying on trust. Cotton farming has its own ledger: water use, pesticides, worker exposure. Organic handles part of that, but you wear finishes, not irrigation. The cleanest play marries both, organic fiber and audited chemistry. The second best is boring, untreated basics you wash twice before they touch skin, fragrance-free detergent without isothiazolinones, no fabric softeners, and an iron or steamer when wrinkles show up. It's not a lifestyle, it's a habit. Here's a simple filter you can run in a minute. Flip the package. If claims outnumber specifics, walk. If the brand names the cert, gives the scope number, and links to criteria, take the next step. If it brags no formaldehyde but says nothing about biocides or PFAS, pause. If it says wrinkle-free and natural, assume the contradiction lives in your bedroom. Schools and hotels make this easier when they want to. A district can specify GOTS sheets and OEKO-TEX uniforms, ban scent boosters from laundries, and publish supplier test results. A hospitality group can standardize on certified linens and no long-lasting fragrance policies. Nurse logs and guest surveys do the rest. The last human moment. A new parent bought natural crib sheets that smelled like a spa. The infant rubbed a cheek raw every nap. They washed the set 5 times. The smell stayed. A neighbor dropped off a plain, certified cotton set and a note: washed twice, no boosters, line dry once. The nursery stopped smelling like a candle aisle. The cheek healed. Nothing fancy happened. Something chemical didn't. Cotton isn't guilty by default. Mystery is. Demand receipts, certifications with scope, disclosed criteria, batch testing, and FAS-free guarantees that mean something off paper. When the label sells a mood, let the fabric earn a place on your skin by being boring. Natural isn't a noun you can problems. It's a process you can verify. And child-specific risks. The danger on kids' clothes rarely shouts. It hides in the tiny places little hands love. Snaps they mouth, glitter they pick, prints they rub. In adult closets, exposure is hours on skin. In childhood, it's inches from a face with everything ending in a taste test. That turns small parts into big problems fast. Start with metal trims. Nickel is a classic irritant in adults. In kids, it becomes a rash they scratch until bedtime. The EU solved the guessing with a release limit for items in prolonged skin contact, buttons, snaps, zippers. In the US, there's no parallel apparel-wide rule. A cute onesie arrives with shiny snaps that look harmless and behave otherwise. Parents blame detergent. Then a pediatrician runs a patch panel and the culprit wears a smiley face. Move to prints. Plastisol, the thick, flexible ink that keeps mascots bright, often rides on plasticizers. In toys, phthalates face strict caps. In apparel prints, the line blurs unless a brand voluntarily applies the same rules. A bargain tee with a giant logo can meet fabric standards, while the print carries a chemical history you didn't sign up for. Drool plus friction turns that history into contact. After a morning at daycare, a red square blooms where the graphic met a chin. Glitter and foil raise stakes because they flake. Loose particles shed under thumb and tooth. Kids rub eyes. Hands go back in mouths. What makes a shirt sparkle becomes confetti on a high chair, then a snack. The fix is old-fashioned. Stitched designs beat coatings. Embroidery lasts through cousins and doesn't become dust. Cheap faux leather trims look like grown-up gear in miniature. The soft leather tab on a boot or jacket cuff might carry plasticizers far above levels a toy could get away with. Kids don't play by product category. They chew the tag that sits at their lips in a stroller. The tag doesn't declare what's in the mix. Hardware isn't just metal. Elastic and drawcord toggles bring their own risks. Small, detachable parts can detach for real, turning a hoodie into a choking hazard. Safety standards exist for cords and pullers, but enforcement trails speed. Loose crystals and rivets look like treasure to a toddler. They are. Here, S where the mouth matters. Children explore with it. Toddlers park fabric in it. That's why toy rules assume mouthing time and set limits accordingly. Clothing can slide outside those assumptions even when behavior doesn't. A bib that's really a billboard sets up the worst combination. Saliva, friction, and a print that shouldn't meet a pacifier's audience. A micro story that changed a room. A daycare banned logo bibs after seeing a cluster of chin rashes. They switched to plain stitched cloth, washed with an unscented, certified detergent. Parents rolled eyes. 2 weeks later, the rash log was almost empty. The ban stayed without a vote. Another one, a pediatric allergist kept seeing nickel arcs on bellies and thighs from snaps and rivets. She printed a one-page guide, organically grown fiber optional, nickel-safe hardware mandatory, embroidered designs over prints, avoid glitter, foil, and puffy inks. She taped it to exam doors. Families took photos. Follow-up visits got shorter. Policy splits again. In the EU, toy-like parts on textiles often face toy-like limits, nickel release caps, banned azoamines, phthalate restrictions. There's ongoing surveillance and recalls with names and model numbers. In the US, CPSIA covers children's products, but apparel prints can slip through if they aren't classified like toys. Enforcement becomes a patchwork of state actions and voluntary brand standards. A hoodie that fails in Hamburg can ship in Houston with the same smile. What helps in a store with a cart and a kid? Touch the design. If you can feel a plastic film, assume plasticizer until the brand proves otherwise. Pick stitched names, woven patches, and appliques without coatings. Flip the garment and check hardware. Look for nickel-free or nickel-safe claims from brands that publish test data. For babies, choose snaps and zippers that don't sit against skin or add a soft fabric guard. Skip glitter. If it shines without stitch, leave it. For schools and teams, write it down. Specs that say no intentionally added phthalates in prints, nickel-safe trims to EU release limit, azoamine compliant dyes, no loose glitter or foil, move vendors faster than emails do. Ask for third-party test reports and post summaries. Parents don't need every number. They need a signal that someone looked. At home, wash new kids' clothes twice before first wear. It's not superstition, it's subtraction. If a print smells like a toy aisle, air it outside, then decide if it belongs. If a rash shows under a logo, switch to a stitched version for a week. If snaps bite, cover them with a soft tab or change the garment. Keep tiny hands away from loose add-ons. If it's tempting to pick, assume it'll be eaten. One last human moment. A parent loved buying surprise bag tees with loud graphics. Every laundry day, the dryer smelled like a craft store. A preschool teacher suggested a swap. 5 stitched tees, 1 plain hoodie, wash and air twice, ditch anything that flakes. The house stopped smelling like plastic. The toddler's chin healed. Nothing dramatic happened. Small parts stopped doing big work. Kids don't read labels, they taste them. Dress for that reality. Where trims and prints meet mouths and skin, plain is protection, stitching is design, and the best label is silence. Human costs, tannery towns, dye houses, and cancer clusters. The jacket didn't start in a mall. It started in a low building that smelled like wet hide and metal, where a boy on a bicycle pedals past drums turning blue. His mother ties a scarf over her mouth and steps into fog that isn't weather. By dinner, her hands sting. By winter, the cough sounds older than she is. Follow the supply chain where labels never go. Chrome-tan alleys in South Asia where hides arrive with the fat still on, men stand ankle-deep in liquor the color of coins, and wastewater slides into a canal that doubles as a shortcut home. Done right exists closed loops, high standards, protective gear, but price pressure keeps the sloppy version busy. When chromium turns to chromium VI, it doesn't ask for a passport. It touches skin, floats in dust, and rides water toward field. Meanwhile, dye houses stamp the season's palette onto fabric that must ship yesterday. On the floor, vats climb to a boil. Azo and dispersed dye recipes hit heat. Workers mix, lift, and wring while condensate drips from ceiling beams. On hot days, doors stay closed to keep steam in. The same cloud that fixes color can carry solvents and amines into lungs. Outside, a narrow street hosts a tea stall and a kindergarten gate. The building next door is a home. Here, where the numbers feel personal. In tannery districts, clinics see contact dermatitis turn to sensitization, then to asthma that starts on Mondays. In dye belts, young technicians develop rashes that match glove lines, then headaches that match shift changes. Epidemiologists map clusters downstream, more thyroid issues here, more stomach cancers there, and then argue with confounders. Smoking, cooking fuel, poverty, everything that muddies a neat chart. But keep listening. The nurse in one ward can predict who will walk in by what color the river ran last week. Micro story lands it. A dyer's daughter grew up tracing letters in damp dust on the floor while her father changed vats. By middle school, red patches climbed her arms every summer. Doctors called it heat rash. Patch tests later, dispersed dye mixes lit up. The factory invested in closed tanks and proper exhaust after an audit demanded it. Within months, the rashes faded in half the crew. The river didn't change color as often. The family still lives on the same lane. The difference isn't magic. It's fans, lids, and a manager who chose compliance over speed. Tannery towns repeat the lesson. Where good plants run, hides move through enclosed drums, employees wear boots and proper gloves, effluent treatment hums before water reaches a ditch, and chrome recovery systems claw value back from waste. Where margins run the show, acids etch floors, bare hands stir liquor, and downstream farms see yields drop while wells start tasting like metal. It isn't fair to paint a country. It's accurate to paint a system that pays for speed with other people's air. Fashion's buyer behavior sits upstream of all this. When a brand demands a price that fits a marketing calendar, suppliers shave corners, protective gear becomes optional, night shifts skip ventilation to save heat, wastewater treatment runs on promises. Then come the stories you hear every year: a dye house fire with a locked door, a tannery worker collapsed in a pit, a cluster nobody has the budget to study. These aren't mysteries, they're business models. There are bright spots. Brands that publish supplier lists and labor audits find their factories get cleaner. Lucent partners swap volatile solvents for safer ones and cap persistent chemicals before a bolt leaves a gate. Leather working group ratings push tanneries to install chrome recovery and test for CRVI in finished lots. The air smells wet, not sharp. Floors are dry. Effluent pipes run to a treatment plant, not a ditch. A small decision in a conference room decides how a street breathes. One retailer changed specs: no azoamin offenders, dispersed dye controls, PFAS-free finishing, effluent standards tied to contracts, and funded third-party testing down the line. Within a season, 2 mills upgraded exhaust. A tannery installed real wastewater treatment to keep the business. Workers noticed that their gloves didn't melt to their fingers. The nurse's log got boring. Micro story that keeps returning. A woman in a tannery zone carried water in a steel pot from a tap that tasted faintly bitter. Her son's shoes came from a nearby factory. 2 NGOs installed simple filtration on a school well and pressured the tannery network to join a common effluent treatment plant. A year later, the tap didn't sting tongues and the pot stopped staining. The shoes still shipped. The price barely moved. What do you do from a closet thousands of miles away? Choose brands that name their factories and publish chemical management and labor audit results, not just policies. Favor certifications that audit upstream. Bluesein Leather Working Group, OEKO-TEX, because a seal here means a fan there. Use your leverage where it multiplies. School, workplace, team orders with specs that outlaw the worst chemistries and require wastewater control. Push retailers to adopt REACH-level substance restrictions globally, not just for Europe. Post the wins. Shame the quiet failures. This isn't about guilt, it's about accounting. That hoodie didn't begin on a hanger. It began in a room with steam and names. When a brand says complies, ask for the factory gate photo that proves it. When a retailer says responsible, ask whether someone downstream can drink their morning without flinching. If the answer lands as silence, that silence is part of the price. The wardrobe reset. A 14-day closet audit. Open the closet and tell the truth. Half of what's in there you don't wear. Some of what you do wear bites. The goal isn't purity. It's lowering the background so your skin, air, and laundry stop doing quiet damage. 2 weeks is enough to change a household's default. Day 1, pull everything you or your kids wear most: sleep, school, work, workout, outerwear. Make one yes pile weekly use, one may be seasonal, one donate. You're not judging style, you're surfacing contact. Day 2, wash the weekly basics twice before first wear going forward. Run deep dark synthetics and kids' uniforms on cold with a second rinse. Skip scent boosters and softeners. Air dry high dye synthetics or hang for 10 minutes before folding. Your nose and dust will feel it. Day 3, retire stain-resistant school and play clothes where you can, replaced with untreated cotton or wool. If a uniform requires a specific brand, layer a plain cotton tank under polos and wash twice. Set a home rule. School clothes off at the door, play clothes or pajamas on. Day 4, outerwear triage. Keep true gear, ditch theater. Jackets for commutes or car lines should be fluorine-free DWR. If tags don't say FOS-free or fluorine-free, assume they aren't. Plan a non-fluorinated reproofing later rather than living with a persistent finish now. Day 5, color check. Any garment that bled in its first wash earns a second and third before it sits on skin. For leggings and compression pieces, rotate lighter shades and cotton liners under black synthetics. Note which brands hold dye without perfuming the room. Keep those. Day 6, leather and hardware audit. Belts, watch bands, shoes that touch skin, favor vegetable tanned or chrome-free. Replace mystery buckles with nickel-safe options. If a watch back leaves a coin-sized rash, swap the strap to fabric-lined and add a barrier. Day 7, kids, trims, and prints day. Retire glitter, foil, and thick plastisol graphics for anything that touches mouths. Choose stitched designs. Check snaps and zippers for nickel-safe claims, cover or replace if they sting. Bag questionable items, take photos and note brand. Day 8, sleep reset. Move to snug fit cotton or wool pajamas labeled as such. Retire chemical stiff sleep sacks and costumes used as pajamas. Wash new sets twice. If sheets smell sharp out of the package, air and wash before a first nap. The nursery should smell like nothing. Day 9, laundry pipeline. Install a microfiber filter or use a laundry bag for synthetics. Clean dryer ducts, run a fan or crack a window during and after cycles. Dose detergent to the line, more is residue. A second rinse on uniforms and dark synthetics is your quiet fix. Day 10, certifications in, theater out. Pick one category to upgrade with credible seals. OEKO-TEX Standard 100 for basics, GOTS for cotton, Bluesin for performance. Verify scope numbers online. Replace one high contact item you wear daily. Small wins stack faster than whole. Day 11, the entry rule. Hooks by the door for coats, basket for school clothes. Change when you get home. It's not fussy, it's containment. Shoes live below, socks go to laundry. A floor mat and a habit move PFAS and street dust out of the living room. Day 12, team and school leverage. Draft a one-page spec, no intentionally added PFAS, AZO Aman-compliant dyes, nickel-safe trims to EU limit, phthalate-safe prints, supplier testing available. Email it to your PTA, coach, or purchasing. Offer to pilot with one order and publish results. Day 13, repairs and second-hand. Mend seams, replace buckles, favor vintage leather and washed cotton that's already off-gassed and shed dye. Shop second-hand for jeans and jackets, wash twice on arrival. Patina beats perfume. Day 14, the keep list. Write down brands and lines that were quiet, no smell from the bag, no dye in the sink, no rash after wear. Take pictures of labels and style codes. When you need to buy, repeat what didn't talk back. Set a reminder, reproof fluorine-free shells every season. Micro stories keep it real. A family swapped stain-proof khakis for plain cotton, changed at the door and aired the laundry. The hallway stopped tasting like chemicals. A teacher asked parents for stitched tees. The class rash log dried up. A runner rotated colors and added cotton liners. The knee rash retired. If you want a 5-item starter kit, 2 OEKO-TEX tees, 1 GOTS pajama set, 1 fluorine-free shell, 1 vegetable tanned belt with nickel-safe buckle. Add a laundry filter. Add hooks by the door. Add a sentence to your next bulk order. None of this needs a speech. It needs a calendar and a cart. 2 weeks isn't a cleanse. It's a reset, boring, repeatable, and cheap compared to creams and returns. When clothes stop performing in your air, rooms go quiet. That quiet, the big levers, point. Schools, teams, workwear, and retail specs. You can fix a closet, or you can fix a hallway. The hallway wins more days than not. Bulk buying feeds entire towns, cafeterias, teams, hospitals, warehouses, where a single spec sheet decides what thousands wear against their skin for 8 hours. Change the spec, and the rash log changes with it. Start where habits begin, schools. Uniforms touch kids 5 days a week, washed on repeat. A district buyer doesn't need a chemistry degree. They need a one-page recipe the market can follow. No intentionally added PFAS in fabrics or finishes. AZO compliant dyes verified to EU standards, nickel-safe trims to EU release limits, phthalate-safe prints or stitch designs preferred, formaldehyde in finished goods below strict thresholds, supplier test reports available on request. Put that into an RFP, add random third-party testing twice a year, and post summaries on the district site. Vendors will meet the paper they want to win. A small district ran a 5-school pilot. They swapped stain-proof polos for untreated cotton, specified stitched logos, and required nickel-safe hardware on belts. 2 spot tests flagged a vendor, replacements shipped within a week. By mid-semester, the nurse's file for mystery rashes after lunch was thin. Parents noticed that the hallway smelled like pencils, not plastic. No banners, just fewer complaints. Teams have their own lever. Track kits, soccer jerseys, warm-ups, high-friction, high-sweat. Write what matters. Fluorine-free DWR on shells, dope-dyed or solution-dyed synthetics where possible, phthalate-safe numbers, no glitter or foil, and dye fastness that survives heat. Add a laundering spec, cold wash, gentle, no scent boosters, and include a sizing buffer so players can wear cotton layers under deep black. A coach couldn't name a dye, but he added 1 line to his order. Stitched crest only. The graphic itch that showed up every August didn't return. Workwear magnifies stakes. A hospital system standardized on scrubs that met PFAS-free, AZO-compliant dyes, nickel-safe snaps, and OEKO-TEX certification. They paired it with laundry rules that cut residue and installed microfiber filters on big washers. 6 months later, facilities logged fewer laundry odors, dermatology logged fewer waistband rashes, and the night shift stopped joking about scrub smell. In a warehouse, a procurement lead specified vegetable tan belts and swap-in fabric guards for high-vis vests. The belt line blisters that arrived every summer became rare. Retailers write the quiet law of a zip code. Private label standards can mirror reach globally. Ban the 22 aromatic amines from azo dye breakdown. Cap nickel release. Require chromium VI not detected. Outlaw intentionally added PFAS and set formaldehyde limits aligned with EU guidance. Add upstream process standards, Blueson fabrics, leather working group rated tanneries, and require total fluorine screening for lines that claim fluorine-free. Then do the part customers never see, random lot testing, publishable summaries, and a no-exceptions vendor policy. One chain added PFAS-free by design to outerwear, barred phthalates in prints, and moved to stitched graphics in kids' tees. Shoppers didn't notice a revolution. Returns went down. Make it boring to follow. Template language helps. Vendor shall certify no intentionally added PFAS. Fabrics must comply with EU-listed AZO restrictions. Trims must meet EU nickel release limits for prolonged skin contact. Leather components, chromium VI not detected. Finished goods formaldehyde below XMG/kg. Plastisol prints must meet phthalate restrictions equivalent to EU toy limits. Furnish third-party test reports per lot. Buyer reserves right to random testing. Non-compliance triggers replacement at vendor cost. Copy, paste, win bids. Measurement turns anecdotes into policy. Ask nurses to log post-lunch rash or belt line itch by brand and lot code. Track returns and odors in laundry rooms. Use simple fluorine screens on outerwear and total dye bleed tests in laundries. Post a monthly dashboard with 3 numbers. When lines flatten, keep standards. When they spike, pull a thread and publish a fix. Cities and counties can scale it with cooperative purchasing. One spec becomes 10 agencies' default. Schools, transit, parks, and hospitals buy from the same safer pool. Vendors stop running 2 formulas because logistics hates complexity. A mayor never needs a press conference. A buying group email changes factories. Parents and staff have leverage without a megaphone. Bring a 1-page spec to the PTA. Offer to pilot stitched tees for field day. Email HR with a scrubs ask and 3 brands that already comply. If procurement hears, "We'll wear what meets this," they'll write it. If they hear nothing, the status quo ships in unmarked bags. Platforms aren't off the hook. Marketplaces can require compliance attestations, block sellers with repeated violations, and fund random testing in high-risk categories: children's apparel, faux leather, printed sleepwear. Make enforcement public. Strike counts, bans, test summaries. When sellers know the lane narrows, recipes change. Micro stories lock it in. A marching band wrote stitched only into its uniform order. No one missed glitter, no one missed chin rashes. A grocery chain added nickel-safe buttons to polo specs. Cashiers stopped taping bellies. A city posted PFAS-free outerwear on its procurement page. Competitors matched it within a season. The big levers aren't slogans. They're boring sentences on paper that turn into different air in rooms. Write the spec, measure the result, publish the receipts, then do it again. Buyer's field guide, fast filters and red flags. You don't need a lab to buy a shirt. You need a short list that survives Tuesday. 5 questions you can run in under a minute, a few seals that actually mean something, and a couple of habits that make the worst chemistry work harder to reach your skin. Start with the fastest filter. What's the promise? If the hang tag brags stain-resistant, wrinkle-free, or long-lasting fresh, treat those as chemistry claims until proven otherwise. Stain-resistant often means PFAS unless the brand says PFAS-free or fluorine-free and backs it with a certification or test method. Wrinkle-free on cotton usually means resin finishes that can off gas. Fresh, that lasts for weeks, is either fragrance or antimicrobial marketing in disguise. None of those are automatic deal breakers. They're red flags that demand proof. Second filter, can you verify anything? Credible certifications do the heavy lifting for you. OEKO-TEX standard 100 screens finished goods against a long restricted list and tests actual production lots. GOTS covers organic cotton and audited chemistry from field to finished product. Bluesen focuses upstream, dye houses and mills, so nastier recipes never hit fabric. Real seals come with scope numbers you can look up on the certifier's site. If a brand waves a leaf icon without a number, it's theater. Third, what did they test and do they say it out loud? Brands with nothing to hide link to restricted substance lists, publish finished article test summaries, and state things plainly. No intentionally added PFAS. Azoamine compliant to EU standards. Nickel release per EU limit. Chromium VI not detected in leather. Complies isn't a claim, numbers are. If customer service can't answer basic questions, PFAS policy, azoamine restrictions, nickel release. Assume the answer you need is no. Fourth, touch and smell. If a garment smells sharp, perfumey, or solvent-rich out of the bag, it's telling you something. That scent lives in the air you'll breathe. If a print feels thick and plasticky, assume plastisol until the brand proves phthalate safe. If glitter or foil flakes under a thumb, it will flake under a tooth. If a dark synthetic leaves dye on your hand, it will leave it in your wash and your air. You don't need a meter. You need 5 seconds of honesty. Fifth, hardware and leather. Anything that sits against skin, belts, watch bands, snaps, zippers deserves special attention. Look for nickel-safe or nickel-free claims backed by EU-style release testing. For leather, vegetable tanned, chrome-free, and chromium VI not detected are boring, powerful words. If the brand won't name the Tannery standard, leather working group, for instance, assume the shortcut. Now build a quick buyer's script that works anywhere. Do you have the OEKO-TEX or got scope number? Check it. Is this PFAS-free, fluorine-free DWR? Look for a test method, total fluorine, or an explicit chemical family ban. Are dyes compliant with EU azoamine restrictions? Yes or no beats a paragraph. Nickel safe trims to EU limits. If they don't know, they didn't test. Do you publish a restricted substance list and finished good test summaries? A link is better than a promise. Default picks when you don't have time to play detective. Basics, OEKO-TEX, standard 100 tees, underwear, socks. Wash twice before first wear. Cotton sheets and pajamas, got certified. Snug fit kids sleepwear. Outerwear, fluorine-free shells. Reproof with non-fluorinated sprays as needed. Performance gear. Bluesign-approved fabrics or brands that commit to solution-dyed synthetics and FAS-free finishes. Leather, vegetable tanned belts and bands, nickel-safe buckles and backs, chromium VI not detected, marketplace survival, when the brand feels like a username, filter for items shipped from domestic inventory. Bulk imports face more scrutiny than atomized mail. Avoid unknown micro brands for kids' graphics and faux leather trims. Pick stitched designs and plain fabrics you can wash twice. Read reviews for signal words. Smell, dye, bleed, rash, itch. 1 review is noise. 10 is a pattern. If the return address is a mystery and the price feels like a dare, skip anything that touches skin for hours. The Minimis means less routine scrutiny. Laundry is part of the purchase. Build these boring moves into your cart. Wash new items twice before first wear, especially dark synthetics, kids' clothes, sheets, and anything labeled non-iron. Stain resistant or fresh. Dose detergent to the line. Run a second rinse for uniforms and deep colors. Skip scent boosters and softeners. Add a microfiber filter or laundry bag for synthetics. Clean dryer ducts. Crack a window during and after drying. Category, specific red flags and quick swaps. Kids' tees, avoid thick plastisol glitter foil. Choose stitched logos. Check snaps for nickel-safe claims. Leggings and compression. Rotate lighter colors. Add cotton liners under black synthetics. Favor solution-dyed options. School uniforms. Untreated cotton polos. Stitched crests. FAS-free claims in writing. Publish test results if you can steer the purchase. Watches and jewelry. Titanium, ceramic, or coated stainless backs. Fabric-lined straps. Nickel-safe hardware. Shoes. Look for chromium VI not detected in leather. Avoid mystery insole glues. Wear socks during break-in. When something bites, stop guessing. Bag the item, note dates, take photos of rashes and labels, and email the brand asking for chemical disclosures. PFAS policy, azoamine testing, nickel release, chromium VI results, formaldehyde limits. Reputable companies will answer in specifics. Ghosts will ghost you. Your next purchase should follow the answer, not the font. And remember the quiet wins. Plain over promise. Beats miracle over mystery. Search with scope. Beat icons without numbers. Numbers and methods. Beat complies. Second-hand and repaired. Beat glossy and new. Patina is time finishing the process for you. If you want a pocket checklist, you can run with a thumb. Tag claims. Stain resistant / wrinkle-free / fresh equals ask. Cert numbers. OEKO-TEX / got / bluesign verified. PFAS, FAS-free / fluorine-free with a method. Dyes, EU azoamine compliant. Trims leather, nickel-safe, chromium VI not detected. Smell touch, neutral, no thick plastic prints, no flaking. Plan, wash twice, filter, skip boosters. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be consistent. 10 small, boring choices beat 1 heroic haul. They turn a closet into quiet rooms and receipts into policy, and they keep the show off your skin. Resolution and meaning. Your closet isn't fashion, it's contact chemistry you live in, and the rules behind it decide how your skin and air feel every day. If you want the buyer's checklist, school spec template, and fluorine-free outerwear guide, watch the follow-up next. Subscribe for more untold receipts and drop your worst eco label fail in the comments so we can decode it together. Then share this with one person who buys for your home.